Hello, this is Debra Cohen, a story and a song podcast that comes to you weekly on my YouTube channel. The handle is at Jewish Rock Music, and also on my Facebook profile, Debra Cohen, Debra, Cohen, Cohen, and sometimes streaming on Instagram when it decides to work for me. So it looks like it's working today. And I thought, I'm looking for a specific trope. I want to learn how to chant the Torah with a special musical pattern from times of the past. Now, even though my synagogue, which is conservative, does the Ashkenazi trope, and I will have to learn that because my rabbi does the Ashkenazi trope. But for some reason, my inner ear migrates toward the Sephardic trope, and I'm specifically looking for training in Yerushalmi, which is a hard find. I've been looking for decades, actually, and various roadblocks along the way keep me looking. I'm still looking, but I kind of sort of took a sidetrack into this. I think because there is war going on in Syria, namely the Druze people and the Christians are getting persecuted in Syria, although you don't hear much about that today. And, apparently Instagram is working. We have Stacy Jagger 5 and Robaranon or Robaronson Music. So this is a little journey into the past about who was in Syria. I'm sure that whether you're a Jew or a Christian, you probably heard of the Aleppo Codex. It's mentioned in the book of Maccabees, which is a mutual book for Christians, or at least Catholics, right? They have it as an apocrypha in their Bible. So it behooves every Christian to know a little bit about this area that was called Aram. According to the Bible, you'll find it there. Even when Jesus walked the earth, it was this area, today is Syria, was known in the Bible as Aram. Its architectural reflects the influences of successive rulers, just to give you a little heads up. Who lived there in the past? The Hittites, the Assyrians, the Akkadians, the Greeks, the Persians, the Romans, the Umayyads, the Ayyubids, the Mamluks, and the Ottomans. Wait a minute. What about the Jews? The Jews lived there too. And of course, if you are a Christian or one of those varieties, because we know there's different sects in all religions, they're man-made. What about the Jews? The Jesus was a Jew. So listen up, people. If you'd like to know a little bit more, I'll be back right after this station break.
A Story and a Song podcast by Debra Cohen. Interfaith Music. Every Sunday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Books, music, singing for life. How songs elevate in praise. Deeper mysteries of the soul for all creation. It's the golden age of praise. Singing from your heart and your soul. Music, stories, and merch, of course, on Amazon. A story and a song about life.
And again, this is Debra Cohen and two in my real-time life. And maybe some of you are interested in Aleppo. This is an area in Syria that I'm wondering about as Syria goes into a transformative government. I don't hear anything in the news about Aleppo. Maybe you do, but if you're watching this video, you will see a picture on my let's see, is that my right shoulder? Yeah, my right shoulder, a picture of a Jewish family in Aleppo and the Aleppo citadel seen from the southwest circa 1910. The original stereographic images have been altered into an anaglyph when viewed through res. All right, so this is called Jewish Aleppo, Lost Forever. And this is in the Tablet magazine, in case you want to research it later. And again, article is written by Joseph Dana. Keep in mind that this article was written in 2012, and we know Syria has gone through a lot of transformation recently, but this talks about what happened before Syria fell in the past 2 years. The Syrian diaspora in Israel, and a diaspora means Israel in the Bible is located where it is today. Although the boundaries of Israel in the Bible or the Torah specifically mention that the boundaries of Israel are from the Nile River to the Euphrates River. So Israel today is smaller than what it was when Abraham lived there, when King David lived there. But keeping in mind, when the Messiah comes to Jerusalem, the boundaries will be reestablished. And a lot of what is not Israel today, when the Messiah comes, will be Israel in the future. And if you don't like that, take it up with God. I'm just the messenger. Okay. So the Syrian diaspora means Jews that have vacated Israel 3,000 some odd years ago because of disobedience. That's point blank. That's what it is. If the Jews stayed in Israel, we wouldn't have all this schmutz with the two-state solution today. We'd have the land because God gave it to us, period. But when you leave, I mean, you know, other people try to get there and wanted the land and whatever. So Syria we're talking about is a diaspora in Israel that watches its once vibrant ancestral home fall to ruin in the country's civil war. And again, this was in 2012. And why am I sharing it? Because I think it's interesting. The northern Syrian city of Aleppo, once a pillar of Jewish existence worldwide, is slowly being destroyed by the fighting that has engulfed Syria for the past 17 months. And this was in 2012. Last week in 2012, a Free Syrian Army rebel warned that soon there will be nothing to destroy in Aleppo. So, that makes me curious. I wasn't interested in Aleppo in 2012. I just wasn't in that mindset to study. But I am now. So I'm looking back at the history and trying to connect the dots. Imagine Rome or Paris destroyed by civil war in the social media age. Coincidentally, Aleppo had already been in the news thanks to a book at that time written by the New York Times Magazine, an article about one of the city's most famous claims to recognition. The article is called The Aleppo Codex of the Hebrew Bible, said to have been compiled in Tiberias in the 10th century and hijacked by the Crusaders after their conquest. So the Crusaders nabbed the Hebrew Bible, known as the Aleppo Codex, when they took over the land. After a short but monumental stay in the hands of Maimonides, it wound up in Aleppo, where it was kept hidden in a crypt lining the walls of the city's great synagogue for almost 600 years. So just to show you the value of this Aleppo Codex to the Jewish soul, and other nations called Goyim recognized the value of this book, so they stole it, meaning the Crusaders. But then It was in Aleppo. It was kept hidden. The Codex, believed to be the oldest manuscript containing the entire Hebrew Bible, was smuggled out of Syria in 1950s thanks to the courageous efforts of a handful of Aleppine Jews. So these are Jews that lived in Aleppo. They called them Aleppine. Like a segment of Aleppo's Jewish community, the Codex found a home in Jerusalem, where it sits under lock and key today at the Israel Museum. I think that's fascinating. Absolutely. Although I'm not sure, but I think there were some pages taken by who we don't know. Anyway, what made Jewish existence in Aleppo so unique and vibrant? For thousands of years, Aleppo was an unofficial capital of the Sephardic Jewish world. Fueled by wealth from international trade and waves of Jewish immigration, the city's Jews sustained a pious community revered for educational excellence and as a guardian of traditions with roots in ancient Israel. Alpine folklore, some even say that one of King David's generals personally laid the foundation for its great synagogue, now located at the heart of fighting, hints at the prestige of the city in Jewish history. But the city is lost, and Jewish existence has been all but erased from its cobbled streets in 2012. Remarkably, what has not disappeared is the Aleppine way of life in diaspora communities spanning the globe. And again, diaspora are Jews that had to leave their land, meaning Israel, for whatever reason. You have to look into Jewish history to find out why they left in the first place. And we're talking 3,000 years ago, before it was ever known as Palestine. I would say without any hesitation that the community of Jews from Aleppo is the strongest Jewish community in the world in the sense of solidarity. Yom Tov, that's his name, Yom Tov Assis, a professor of medieval history at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, told me in his book Saturated Office. Assis was born in Aleppo and briefly experienced the violence in the city that accompanied Israel's independence. He recently founded the Center for the Study of Aleppine Jewry at the Hebrew University in an effort to preserve and study the traditions of his vibrant community. Quote, "There is hardly any Jewish community apart from the Haredim, the ultra-Orthodox, that is so strongly attached to its past and traditions," end quote, he said. And as a side note, I don't ever hear much about the Aleppo Jews, so I wonder why not in Israel. Where else are they? Let's look and see. Outside of Israel, few cities in the Middle East have a richer history of Jewish cultural activity, education, and trade than Aleppo. Legend has it that the city, which is referred to Haleb in both Hebrew and Arabic, derives its name from a story of Abraham guiding a flock of sheep through the fleece shrubbery of the surrounding mountains. He is said to have distributed his sheep's milk, which is halev in Hebrew, milk in Arabic. I guess it must be haleb. It was called Halev in Hebrew to the local residents of the city, nestled in northern Syria's rolling hills, which thereby was known as Haleb, Haleb. Starting in the late 10th century, Aleppo grew to serve as a passageway between the Jewish communities of Babylonian Center and Israel. Its geographic position and impressive sphere of influence bridged the divide from Persia to the lucrative markets of southern Europe. The city held an almost mythic or legendary status among Jews worldwide. Visiting the city in the late 16th century, Italian monk Pietro della Valle observed in a travel journal that, quote, here in one district, called Aleppo, converges all the Orient with its jewels, silks, drugs, and cloths. And it is also joined by the Occident, with a capital O, namely France in force, Venice, Holland, and England, end quote. Aleppine Jews also used their wealth to establish prominent educational institutions and were recognized for their carefully kept traditions in line with the biblical practices of ancient Jews. In a letter to the Jewish community of Lunel in southern France, Maimonides noted that, quote, in all the Holy Land and in Syria, there is one city alone, and it is Halab, or Haleb, in which there are those who are truly devoted to the Jewish religion and the study of Torah, end quote. Now that makes me want to visit Aleppo, but probably it's not, there's nothing to see today. I'm not sure because I just discovered this article this week, and I was curious because of the war right now going on in Syria with the persecution against the Christians and the Druze. Who's living in Aleppo now? Historically, Aleppo found itself at the crossroads of two of Jewish history's major developments: the expulsion of Jews from Spain and the rise of the Zionist movement. As refugees from Iberia flooded the eastern Mediterranean in the early part of the 16th century, Aleppo became one of the most important centers of absorption. When Aleppo fell under Ottoman rule in the 16th century, the Caliphate maintained a relatively warm relationship with the Jewish community, provisions ensuring that synagogues were not built taller than the mosques, and that Jewish religious behavior was performed quietly. Part of their status as dhimmis, Dhimmis, meant that Jews found a fragile entente. Now, let's go on to how the United Nations screwed this up. Messed this up. In 1947 and 48, after the UN, aka United Nations, voted to implement a two-state solution in Palestine, anti-Jewish riots broke out in Aleppo. False rumors spread that the Codex had been destroyed in an attack. From this point until the late 1980s, the community dismantled itself, and Aleppine Jews began to take shape mainly in Israel, Brooklyn, and New York, and South America. So if you want to know where they are today, those are the three hubs: Israel, Brooklyn, New York, and South America. Assis told me we used to summer in Lebanon near Beirut. One summer, my parents rented a large bus with other Jews from Aleppo, and only after we crossed into Lebanon did they inform us that we would never return to Aleppo. They were not alone. Some Jews remain in Muslim countries, from Morocco to Iran. Their numbers, however, are too small to legitimize the notion that outside of Israel there are still vibrant Jewish communities in the Middle East. What, then, is the best way to remember Jewish life under Muslim rule in the Middle East? It's a question that has floated through the halls of Jewish academia for at least 30 years, alternately provoking idealized versions of peaceful life in the Arab world and dramatic tales of persecution, especially among those dedicated to European Jewish history, which still struggles to understand the tragedy that befell European Jewry in the 20th century. There is a tendency to view life under Muslim rule as exceedingly peaceful, marked by coexistence and even mutual respect. Outside of academia, the question tends to adopt political contours. with people seeking to place blame either on the Zionist movement or the Arab populations that expelled their ancient Jewish communities after the creation of the State of Israel. Whichever side one falls on politically, it is clear that for the Jews, Aleppo was lost in 1948. How sad. That would explain, though, why the Aleppo Jews are in Israel. They moved from Aleppo to Israel. I'm curious where they are, but I'd have to do more reading. Unless somebody that's listening knows, then you can put it in the chat. The recent destruction of the city's ancient monuments is merely a reminder of what had already been lost. While the Aleppine community in Israel is not nearly as numerous or powerful as their brethren in Brooklyn, New York, the largest Aleppine Jewish community in the world in Brooklyn, covered widely for their financial success and excess, their proximity to Syria and relationship with Jews from other Arab countries gives the events in their lost city a more immediate feel. Like for the Aleppine community in Brooklyn, the idea of Aleppo lives on in schools and synagogues in the exile community in Israel. During our conversation, this is in 2012, the article was printed, Assis relayed stories of his adolescence moving around the Middle East. He says, when I arrived in Beirut and Istanbul, I found myself far more learned than any kid my age, he said. We had a very strong Jewish education. We used to read the Bible and translate it on the spot to the astonishment of our teachers, end quote. What I wouldn't do to be able to do that myself. Aleppine synagogues, especially in Israel, have tried hard to protect the unique aspects of their religious observance. On winter Shabbat mornings, tucked deep in the serene streets of Jerusalem's Nachlot neighborhood, Syrian Jews sing Bachashot, Kabbalistic poetry originating in Spain. The great synagogue of the Aleppo Jewish community in Jerusalem, which was established in 1901, maintains these and other traditions, such as liturgical singing heavily influenced by Arabic, known as the Sephardi Hazanut. Wow! Now this interests me because I like Arabic music, at least, Kulthum singing. For people like Assis, maintaining this tradition in the face of the winds of history is nothing short of an obligation. The Jewish world under Islam has vanished, he said. You can mourn the whole Jewish world under Islam. There is nothing left. What happens to the cemeteries, to the synagogues, to the books, to everything? Well, God knows. And that is my spiel on the Aleppo Jews that are primarily today in 2025 located. The biggest group is in Brooklyn, New York, which makes me want to go visit and see what it's like. Second to South America and Israel. I hope that interests you, and maybe you might want to look up, seeing that we're talking about yet another fight in Syria, persecuting the Christians and the Druze, that, what happened to Aleppo? Who's there today? I'd like to know. And I think I'll look it up after I'm done with this broadcast today. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat. If not, I hope to see you again next week at the same time, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time on my YouTube channel, which broadcasts live at Jewish Rock Music, also on my Facebook profile, Debra Cohen, and sometimes on Instagram. My handle is at Debra Cohen Music, DOTCOM. And don't forget to check out my books. I've now authored 4 books, working on my 5th. You can see what they are on my website, DebraCohenBooks.org. And don't forget to check out my music, DebraCohenMusic.com. Thank you very much for listening, and let's share an ad right now talking about my latest book, The Sand Garden by the Sea, a children's book.
I am the future generation of children in this world. Are my parents going to tell me the truth about Gaza? And where will they get this information? Certainly not on social media, but I found this new storybook called The Sand Garden by the Sea that tells me a true story about the Jews living in Gaza when Gaza was a beautiful place to live. Parents, don't wait for teachers to tell your children the truth. Find books like these to read to your children and tell them the truth.